I'm standing in the kitchen of my small eatery in Denver, where the smell of grilled meat and sautéed onions permeates the cramped space. I am Ramon Marlowe, 35 years old, an ordinary chef with calloused hands from holding knives and pans for the past 10 years. This eatery isn't anything grand, just a small street corner where regulars stop by for burgers or family-style grilled ribs. My life is quite simple, revolving around long, endless shifts from early morning to late at night, and then returning home to Rosalina, my wife. She is everything I've ever dreamed of. Beautiful, intelligent, and always knows how to make me laugh even on the most tiring days. That day was a chilly autumn afternoon with golden leaves falling gently outside the kitchen window. I was busy with the last order, a plate of grilled chicken salad for the elderly neighbor lady, when my phone buzzed in my pocket. I wiped my hands on my apron and glanced at the screen. It was Caleb, my close friend from college. We don't see each other often, but our friendship remains as solid as ever. Caleb works as a computer repair technician at a small shop a few blocks away from my place. A few days earlier, Rosalina had asked me to take her old laptop to him for repairs because it was lagging and overheating. I thought it was no big deal, just an old machine. "Hello, Caleb. Why are you calling at this hour?" "I'm busy here," I said, trying to keep my voice cheerful despite the sweat dripping down my forehead. Caleb's voice on the other end sounded strange. Not his usual joking tone, but tense, as if he was holding something back. "Ramon, you need to come here right away. I fixed your wife's laptop, but I found some really weird stuff. Can't talk about it over the phone. Come over now, okay?" My heart tightened a bit. Weird? Weird how? Is it badly damaged? Or some virus? "It's not a regular virus. Just come, I'll wait." He hung up immediately without letting me ask more. I stood frozen for a few seconds, still holding the phone. The eatery was empty at that moment, with only the sound of the radio playing an old country song. I wondered if Caleb was joking, but his voice didn't sound like it. He's a serious guy, especially with work. I called the kitchen assistant, told him to watch the place, then quickly put on my jacket and jumped into my old pickup truck. The streets of Denver that afternoon were crowded, with cars jammed under the gray sky. I drove with my mind in turmoil, trying to figure out what weird folders could be. Maybe old photos or Rosalina's work documents. She works in finance, handling paperwork and contracts. But why was Caleb so tense? When I pushed open the door to Caleb's computer repair shop, the bell jingled and he looked up from the counter. His face was pale, his eyes red as if he'd been up all night. The shop was small, cluttered with computer parts, tangled wires, and the smell of burnt plastic. "Ramon, good thing you came quickly. Sit down, I'll show you." He pulled me into the back room where there was an old wooden table with Rosalina's laptop already open. The screen was bright, but he had covered part of it with a piece of paper. I fixed it, replaced the battery, and scanned for viruses. But when I checked the hard drive, I found some hidden folders. At first, I thought they were junk, but take a look. He removed the paper and I leaned in to see. On the screen was a list of folders buried deep in the system, not the kind that's easy to find. Caleb clicked one open and my heart seemed to stop. It was my life insurance policy. My name, Ramon Marlowe, date of birth, address, coverage amount, all clearly there. Why is this here? Does Rosalina keep my records? She manages the paperwork. Caleb shook his head, his voice lowering. "That's not all. Look at this." He opened another folder. This time it was my parents' records. My father, Harold Marlowe, 68 years old, and my mother, Elena, 65. Health and life insurance contracts, detailed down to the monthly premiums. A chill ran down my spine. I don't remember Rosalina ever asking about my parents' records. She's only met them a few times. But then Caleb opened more, and that's when everything crumbled. A series of other folders with completely unfamiliar names. A man named Marcus Hale, 38 years old, in Texas. His insurance policy with a huge coverage amount. Then another Ethan Crow in California. And more and more. I roughly counted about a dozen names, all men aged 30 to 40 with life insurance contracts. The beneficiary? Not clear, but there were strange notes about payment plans. I slumped into the chair, my hands trembling. What the hell is this, Caleb? It's Rosalina's laptop. Why are these things here? She works in finance, but these are other people's personal records. I don't know these people. Caleb looked at me, his eyes full of worry. I don't know, Ramon. I only scanned deeper because the machine showed signs of being hacked, but these folders were hidden carefully, like intentionally concealed. You should ask your wife. Maybe it's work-related, but it looks suspicious. I've backed everything up just in case. I nodded, my mind blank. The shock was indescribable. Rosalina, my wife, the woman I've loved deeply throughout our 5 years of marriage. We met at a coffee shop, her smile radiant as she talked about dreams and the future. She's always been open, often sharing about her work, but never mentioned storing strangers' insurance records. Why were mine and my parents there? And who were those other people? My heart pounded as if something dark was lurking. I took the laptop home, driving through the starting drizzle. The streets were hazy under the neon lights, and I felt lost in the familiar city. Our home is a small apartment on the outskirts of Denver, cozy with the smell of the baked goods Rosalina often makes. But today, everything felt different. I parked, turned off the engine, and sat in the darkness for a few minutes. Doubt began to creep in. Why didn't she take the laptop to get fixed herself? Why ask me? And those folders? What did they mean? When I stepped inside, Rosalina was in the kitchen wearing an apron, smiling brightly when she saw me. You're home, darling. I'm making your favorite stewed meat. She hugged me, her familiar perfume scent softening my heart. But in my mind, the images of those strange records haunted me. I forced a smile, hiding the laptop behind my back. Yeah, I'm tired. Caleb fixed the machine, take it. She took it, her eyes flashing something. Or was I imagining? Thanks, honey. Anything unusual? Her voice was normal, but I felt like there was a mask. No, just the battery. I lied, and for the first time in our marriage, I felt suspicious of my wife. That night I lay awake, my mind in chaos. What were those records? How did they relate to me? And Rosalina, the woman I trusted absolutely, now seemed like a stranger. The unease felt like an undercurrent pulling me into a whirlpool I wasn't ready to face. The next morning I woke up earlier than usual, brewing strong black coffee to stay alert. The eatery was waiting for me, but my mind was still wandering around those hidden folders on the laptop. I decided not to ask Rosalina anything more, at least not yet. Instead, I started paying attention to every little thing like a clumsy detective in my own home. And the more I observed, the more I realized that my wife was no longer the woman I once knew, the one I had loved passionately. Rosalina, 33 years old, works in finance, a job she always described as helping people build a secure future. She's incredibly skillful, excellent at communication to the point where she could convince anyone. Her beautiful face with a warm smile, expressive eyes, and gentle voice make people trust her immediately. In my eyes, she was the model of an ideal wife, taking care of the house, cooking delicious meals, and always encouraging me on days when the eatery was slow. We used to have evenings sitting by the fireplace with her hugging me, talking about our shared dreams. You and I will expand the eatery, we'll have children, we'll be happy forever, she would often say. I believed her. There was no reason to doubt. She was everything to me. But when I paid closer attention, I saw something was off. It started with small details, but they piled up like an avalanche. Her home office, a small corner in the house with a wooden desk and a desktop computer. Before, the door was always open. I could walk in anytime, ask about her work. Now she kept it locked all the time, even when she was home alone. Then there were the passwords. Before, we shared everything, phone passwords, emails, even bank accounts. Now she changed her passwords constantly, at least twice a week. I felt like there was an invisible wall between us, and it was getting thicker every day. Strange calls started appearing too. Her phone buzzed incessantly, especially in the evenings. Before, she rarely took late calls unless it was an emergency. Now it was different. She'd pick up the phone, glance at the screen, then go out to the balcony to talk in whispers. "Yes, I'll handle it. It's fine." I overheard something like that, and when I asked, she said, "Just a client, honey. They often call at this hour." And then she started going out in the evenings more often. "I'm meeting a client for a bit, I'll be home late." She'd say that, kiss my cheek, and leave. I'd stand at the window watching her car disappear under the streetlights, my heart full of unease. Out until late, coming home with a strange perfume scent and tired eyes that avoided mine. Was this my Rosalina? Or a different version hidden behind the familiar shell? Then I suddenly realized something I had overlooked before. Rosalina had never clearly talked about her past. Where she lived before, it was vague. Sometimes she said she grew up in New York, other times Chicago. Friends? She rarely mentioned them, and if she did, it was just fleeting names, no details. Whenever I asked deeper, she'd brush it off with a smile. "The past is boring, honey. Let's think about the future." One time she said her father was a doctor, another time an engineer. I used to think it was because she didn't want to bring up sad stories, but now it felt different. Those inconsistencies were like mismatched puzzle pieces, and they were fitting together with the strange records on the laptop. Who was she really, I wondered, lying awake late at night feeling like I was living with a stranger. Around the same time, another character entered this tangled picture, Gage Marlowe, my younger brother, 28 years old. Gage had always been the talkative, friendly type, but a bit impulsive. From a young age, he was spoiled by our parents. The youngest child, everything came easy to him. I was the eldest, had to shoulder responsibilities while Gage was carefree, rarely serious about work. He job-hopped constantly, sometimes sales, sometimes trying online business, but nothing lasted long. We were close, but not overly so. Gage often visited our parents' house, rarely mine. But recently things changed. Gage started coming over frequently, almost every week. At first I thought he was lonely or something, but then I noticed an unusual closeness between him and Rosalina. They'd sit in the living room laughing and chatting lively while I was busy in the kitchen. "Sister-in-law is great. You're so lucky, bro," Gage would often say, his eyes sparkling. Rosalina would laugh and pat his shoulder. She said she was guiding Gage on financial management and helping him with an investment project. Gage bragged to me, "Sister-in-law introduced a great project, bro. I'm about to hit it big." I'd nod, trying to be cheerful, but my heart was full of questions. Lately, Gage had changed noticeably. He dressed more upscale. New shirts, shiny leather shoes. He spoke with more confidence, no longer the childish impulsiveness. He spent lavishly, treating me to dinner at expensive restaurants, buying gifts for our parents. "I hit a big project, bro. All thanks to sister-in-law." He'd boast like that, grinning ear to ear. I'd ask for details. "What project?" He'd dodge. "Business secret, bro." I tried to believe my brother. Gage was family, impulsive but not malicious. But deep down, the unease grew day by day. It was as if there was an invisible thread between Rosalina and Gage that I couldn't see. They often met when I wasn't home. I knew because the neighbors mentioned it. "Your brother visits often." One time I came home early and saw them sitting close together at the desk, looking at documents. They startled when they saw me. Rosalina quickly put away a black briefcase. "You're home early?" Gage was just asking about investments, she said, her voice slightly trembling. My heart tightened. What was this? An affair? Or something darker related to those insurance records? I remembered my parents' records with Gage as the beneficiary. Why? Gage and Rosalina. What were they planning? The suspicion was like poison spreading through my body. I still smiled, still cooked, still hugged my wife, but inside I was dying slowly. Every night I'd lie there thinking, how can I uncover the truth? And if the truth is horrifying, what will I do? Suspicion had transformed me into someone else, vigilant, pained, and ready to confront. I made the decision that very afternoon. After cleaning up the eatery, I jumped into my old pickup truck and drove to my parents' house on the outskirts of Denver. My parents' house was a small wooden home, with a front yard vegetable garden planted by Mom, and Dad often sitting in the garage fixing cars. But today, everything felt different. My heart was pounding as if I was about to face a battle. I parked in front of the gate, took a deep breath, and stepped inside. The smell of baking cookies wafted from the kitchen, familiar and heart-wrenching. Mom was in the kitchen wearing a floral apron. Dad was in the living room reading the newspaper. They looked up when they saw me, smiling brightly. "Ramon, son, why the surprise visit today? Have dinner with us?" Mom said, hugging me tightly. Dad nodded, patting my shoulder. "Sit down, son. I'll make some tea." I sat down on the old sofa, my hands clenched tightly. "I have something to tell you both. It's important." My voice trembled a bit, and they noticed. Mom turned off the stove, sat beside me, her eyes worried. Dad put down the newspaper, looking at me intently. "What's wrong, son? Problem at the eatery? Or health?" I started telling the story. From the beginning, from the forgotten laptop. I told about Caleb's call, about the hidden folders with my insurance records, my parents, and those of complete strangers. I told about how Rosalina had changed. Locking the office door, changing passwords, strange calls, going out late with excuses of meeting clients. I told about her vague past, the inconsistent details, and how she hid documents in a securely locked black briefcase. Then about Gage, my younger brother, suddenly visiting frequently, unusually close to Rosalina in a strange way, changing his attire, spending lavishly, boasting about a big project thanks to sister-in-law's help. I told everything, my voice faltering from the pent-up emotions. Fear, suspicion, pain, all poured out like a river bursting its banks. I think they're planning something, related to insurance, to accidents. I don't know anymore, but everything's not normal. Mom, Dad, I need you to believe me. I stopped, breathing heavily, my eyes looking at my parents expectantly. The living room atmosphere was heavy with only the ticking of the clock. My parents listened from start to finish without interrupting. Mom held my hand. Dad frowned in thought. But then Mom sighed, her voice gentle. "Ramon, you're being too suspicious. Rosalina is a good daughter-in-law. She cares for you, for our whole family. Just a few days ago, she called to check on us and sent gifts too." Dad nodded, his voice deep. "That's right, son. What about Gage? The kid is trying harder at work. He told us about the investment project. Thanks to his sister-in-law's help, he's progressing quickly. That's a good thing. Why are you thinking badly?" I blinked, surprised. "But Mom, Dad, those records, they're not random." And Gage's sudden change, spending extravagantly, I saw them whispering with strange looks. "I'm not being suspicious, I see it clearly." Mom shook her head, stroking my hair like when I was little. "You're too sensitive, Ramon. Marriage sometimes has its ups and downs. Rosalina works in finance. Storing records is normal. As for Gage, the boy is grown up now, knowing to worry about his future. We're glad he's close to his sister-in-law. Don't think nonsense lest it cracks the family." I understood. My parents had absolute trust in those two. Rosalina is gentle, speaks properly, and always knows how to win hearts. Every time she visits, she hugs Mom, compliments the vegetable garden, asks about Dad's health, like a real daughter. And Gage, the youngest son, always protected and spoiled from childhood. My parents see him as a treasure. Every mistake is forgiven. I'm the eldest, have to be strong. But they've never openly favored anyone. It's just, deep down, I know. They advised me, put your trust in the family, son. Look at things positively. Talk straight with Rosalina and Gage, don't suspect wildly. Mom added, family is everything, Ramon. Don't let dark thoughts destroy it. I stayed silent, didn't argue. Leaving the house, I stepped out into the yard, the cold wind blowing across my face. The Denver sky that afternoon was dark and overcast, with black clouds gathering like a harbinger of rain. I got in the car and drove away with a heavy heart. I realized one thing. Sometimes the loneliest person in the family is the one who sees everything most clearly. When I got home, Rosalina was in the kitchen, the smell of grilled meat wafting through as usual. She turned around, smiling brightly. "You're back? I'm making your favorite dish." I hugged her, trying to act normal, but the touch of our skin now felt cold. "Thanks, honey," I said, my voice a bit hoarse. We had dinner, chatting idly about the eatery, about the weather. But in my mind, a plan was forming. That night, when Rosalina was fast asleep, I snuck down to the living room and opened her laptop, the one I'd brought back from Caleb's. The password was still the same, luckily. I sat in the darkness with only the eerie green glow of the screen illuminating my face, my heart pounding like a thief in my own home. I delved deeper into the insurance contracts stored in those hidden folders. Not just skimming like before, but reading carefully, line by line, word by word. My file. Ramon Marlowe, $1 million beneficiary. Rosalina Marlowe. Normal enough for a married couple. But then I opened the next ones. Marcus Hale's file from Texas, died in a car accident, beneficiary. Rose Lena Hale, a name strikingly similar to Rosalina. $2 million paid out after the accident. Ethan Crow from California, skiing accident, beneficiary. Rosalind Crow, again similar. And more, a man named Victor Lang from Florida, drowned while fishing, beneficiary. Rosalina Lang. My heart seemed to stop. All the other insurance contracts had the beneficiary as Rosalina, under various name variations. I closed the laptop, breathing heavily, cold sweat breaking out. This wasn't a coincidence. Rosalina, or whatever name she used, was the beneficiary everywhere. Husbands dying unnaturally, money flowing into her hands. And now was it my turn? The thought made me shudder, as if someone was tightening a noose around my neck. The next morning at the eatery, amid the bustle of burger and salad orders, I thought about hiring a private investigator. I'm no expert, I don't know how to hack or tail someone. But I remembered a regular customer, Mr. Jack Harlan, about 50 years old, who comes in for breakfast every Wednesday. He'd once mentioned he was a private detective, specializing in infidelity and fraud investigations. His face was weathered with silver hair, but eyes sharp as knives. "If you need help, just call me," he'd joked when I talked about the eatery. Now it wasn't a joke. I called him during my break, my voice trembling. "Mr. Jack, it's Ramon from the eatery. I need to meet you. It's personal." We met at a small coffee shop a few blocks from my place. Mr. Jack was sitting there wearing an old leather jacket, holding a cup of black coffee. I told him everything, from the laptop, the files, my suspicions about Rosalina and Gage. He listened without interrupting, just jotting notes in his notebook. "Are you sure? This is big, involving crime." I nodded. "Absolutely. I need proof. Discreetly, don't let them know." He agreed. "All right. I'll investigate your wife's background, track her recent activities, and look into your brother. $2,000 up front, the rest later. A few weeks for the report." I agreed, handing over my savings. The money I'd set aside to expand the eatery. But now the truth was more important. The following days were hell. I still lived normally, cooking, smiling at customers, hugging Rosalina every night. But inside, I was like a hunted animal, always on guard. The weeks passed slowly, like torture. I worked more to forget, but at night sleep was fitful with nightmares. Car crashes, blood, and Rosalina smiling over my grave. Finally, the phone rang. "Mr. Jack, meet me at the usual spot. I have the report." My heart raced. I drove to the coffee shop with shaking hands. He was sitting there, handing me a thick envelope. "Sit down." What I found. It's not pretty. I opened the envelope, my hands trembling. The report was detailed with photos and documents. First, about Rosalina. She'd been married 3 times in different states. First in Texas, 2018 to Marcus Hale. Husband died in a car plunge off a cliff. Rosalina, under the name Rosalina, was the insurance beneficiary for $2 million, then vanished from town after collecting. Second in California, 2020 to Ethan Crow. Died in a skiing accident. Rosalina got $1.5 million, then left. Third in Florida, 2022 to Victor Lang. Drowned. Rosalina Lang received $3 million. Disappeared. Each time the accidents were deemed suspicious but no criminal evidence. Attached wedding photos. Rosalina younger, different hair color, but that face, unmistakable. I read with a bitter lump in my throat. Was my wife a serial killer? Or at least an insurance fraudster? The pain was like a knife twisting. Had I loved her? Or an illusion? Next, the report on Gage. No criminal history but recent strange financial transactions. Transfers to Rosalina, expensive purchases. And then the photos that stunned me. Mr. Jack had captured Rosalina meeting a strange man in a supermarket parking lot a few blocks from our house. He was about 40, scarred face, black coat. The report noted, "This man is Derek Voss, previously suspected of brokering insurance fraud, has an FBI file but no arrests." Photos showed Rosalina handing him a brown file bag, her eyes scanning warily before leaving. They talked briefly. He nodded, then they went separate ways. Each detail strung together into a terrifying picture. Rosalina was a predator marrying to kill husbands for insurance. Now it was my turn. Gage was an accomplice, perhaps lured by money and affection, helping her target our parents. My insurance file. I was the next victim. Our parents, Gage's beneficiary. Probably after my death, they'd stage accidents for them. Derek Voss was the broker, arranging fake accidents. I sat there, head in hands, tears falling. Mr. Jack patted my shoulder. "You okay? This is solid evidence. You should go to the police." I shook my head. "Not yet. I need more. Thank you." I drove home, my mind in chaos. The suspense was dramatic. I was living in a horror movie. Every street corner I imagined accidents striking. Car crashes, falls downstairs. At home, Rosalina greeted me with a smile. "You look tired? Rest up." I nodded but averted my eyes. That night, I hid the report under the bed, lying there plotting. I was no longer the gentle Ramon. I was the hunter now, waiting for the right moment. The next morning, I called Caleb, my close friend who had fixed my wife's computer a few weeks earlier. "Caleb, I need to meet you urgently. About that laptop." His voice was worried. "What now? Are you okay, Ramon?" I arranged to meet him at a small coffee shop near his store, to avoid prying eyes. When we met, I gave a brief summary. Not everything. Just enough for him to understand the seriousness. "I need you to back up all the original data from the laptop. Seal it up with a time confirmation and signature. For court use if needed." Caleb paled. "Oh my God, you really suspect your wife?" "Okay, I'll do it. But be careful." We went back to his store. I brought the laptop along. Rosalina thought I was taking it to work. Caleb worked quickly using specialized software to back up the entire hard drive without touching the original files. He printed out a confirmation. The date and time of the backup, a signature certifying integrity. Then he sealed the USB in an envelope with a tamper-evident seal. "Here, you keep it. If needed, I'll be a witness." I took the envelope, my hands trembling. A surge of suspense welled up. This was the first step, but also dangerous. If Rosalina discovered the laptop had been tampered with, everything would fall apart. I brought the machine home, put it back in its place, my heart pounding like a thief's. That night, I hid the USB at the eatery under the kitchen cabinet drawer, a safe spot. Now I had digital evidence. But it wasn't enough. I needed audio, visuals, things that proved their real intentions. Next, I thought about a recording device. I'm no spy expert, but the internet could help. I found a rechargeable battery-powered recorder the size of a finger that could record continuously for 24 hours. I ordered it online to be delivered to the eatery instead of home. A few days later, the package arrived. I checked it. Clear recording, no noise. Now, where to hide it? Rosalina's home office, where she often sat alone making strange calls. I waited until she went to the market, snuck into the room, and locked the door behind me. My heart pounding like a drum, I hid the device under the desk, taped it in place with the mic facing up. Done. I wiped the sweat away and went out as if nothing had happened. Part 2. Rosalina's car. She often met Gage there, according to the investigator's report. I waited until late at night when she was asleep and snuck out to the garage. I opened the car door quietly, hid the device under the passenger seat. Every movement, I imagined her waking up and catching me red-handed. The suspense was suffocating. Sweat soaked my shirt. My hands slipped a few times. Done, I went back to bed, lying perfectly still. Now every conversation of hers would be recorded. I imagined hearing the plan, accidents for me, for my parents, and the anger kept me more alert than ever. In parallel, I requested the investigator to continue. I called Mr. Jack Harlan from the eatery, whispering, "Mr. Jack, I need more. Keep following Rosalina and Gage. Record every meeting on video. And that strange man, Derek Voss, gather photos and his history." He sighed. "All right, kid. But it's dangerous. Another 1,000 in fees." I agreed. The following weeks were awaiting hell. Every day I checked the recording devices, snuck into the room to retrieve them, listened through headphones at the eatery. At first it was all work calls, but then one segment, Rosalina calling someone, her voice low. "The project is almost done. Gage is helping. Make sure the accident looks natural." My heart tightened. Evidence. From the car, Gage and Rosalina chatting, laughing, then serious. "Does my brother suspect anything?" Gage asked. "It's fine, my love. We'll be careful." Rosalina's voice was sweet, but to me like poison. They called each other my love. The pain of betrayal surged. Tears fell as I listened alone at the eatery. But I wiped them away and continued. Mr. Jack sent a supplemental report via encrypted email. New photos, Rosalina meeting Derek Voss again in a park, handing over another bag. He nodded, smirking. "The accident is arranged. 1 million for you." Clear photos, time-stamped. Then a series of photos of Rosalina and Gage. At a bar, arm in arm, at a motel, entering and leaving at the same time. A short video, them kissing in the car, Gage saying, "After Ramon goes, the money is ours." Then the parents. Rosalina laughed. "Don't worry, Gage. I'll handle it all." I watched with clenched fists, rage exploding. Full evidence. Adultery, murder, conspiracy. But I restrained myself, not acting impulsively. In parallel, I contacted a lawyer. I remembered Mrs. Elena Torres, a familiar lawyer in Denver who had helped with my eatery's lease contract. She was about 50, sharp, and had handled fraud cases. I called, "Mrs. Torres, it's Ramon Marlowe. I need urgent advice. Personal matter." We met at her office, a small building in the city center. I told everything from the laptop to the investigator's reports, handing over the backup USB and photos. She listened, taking notes. "This is serious, Ramon. Insurance fraud, possibly murder. Good evidence, but we need more audio to prove intent." She advised, "Don't go to the police yet. Gather more, then we'll build the case. I'll help for free initially, since you're a regular client." I breathed a sigh of relief, but the suspense grew. What if they find out? She smiled. "Be careful. Act normal." Leaving the office, I felt stronger. Now I had an ally. Once I had enough evidence, USB, recordings, photos, video, I started planning the counterattack. Not just defense, but offense. Protecting my parents while drawing Rosalina and Gage into the very trap they were setting. I thought carefully. They were arranging an accident for me. maybe a car failure or a fall. I'd pretend not to know but change my habits. Not drive alone, check the brakes daily. For my parents, I'd call frequently, advise them to avoid traveling far. Bad weather. Gage often visited, bringing gifts. I knew he was scouting. I'd use Gage himself. Pretend to trust him, ask about the project, to make him slip more. With Rosalina, continue being loving but watchful. The main plan, lure them into thinking I was about to have an accident. Then coordinate with the investigator and lawyer to catch them in the act. For example, if they set up a car crash, I'd tip off the police beforehand, install hidden cameras, protect my parents, convince them to sign new insurance policies with me as beneficiary but discreetly. Mrs. Torres helped draft the papers. From here, I was no longer the gentle husband. I was the silent observer, waiting for the right moment to flip the entire board. Every morning, I'd watch Rosalina wake up, smile at her, but with cold eyes. When Gage visited, I'd pat his shoulder. Good job, bro. But my heart was full of schemes. Late nights, I'd sit alone at the eatery, reviewing the evidence, detailing the plan. The dramatic suspense. Every strange call from Rosalina, every laugh from Gage, I'd imagine the end. Fear was still there, but determination was greater. I remembered my childhood, always shouldering the load, and now the same. But this time, I'd win. The storm was coming and I was in control. In the following days, I still acted normal, but I was always on guard like a wounded prey animal. Every morning I woke up early, brewed coffee for both of us, and chatted with a smile about Denver's chilly weather. I'm busy at the eatery today. Be careful on your way to work, I said to Rosalina, hugging her gently but with my hands clenched tight as if checking for hidden weapons. She laughed in response. You're worrying too much. I'm fine. I nodded, but in my heart I thought, do you think I don't know? Gage visited the house more frequently, bringing coffee or bread from his favorite shop. Bro, I'm just stopping by for a bit. Where's sister-in-law? He asked, his eyes sparkling. I patted his shoulder. In the office. Go on in, bro. But when they sat talking, I stood outside the kitchen door, eavesdropping faintly. They laughed and joked, but I knew there was a plot behind it. I checked the recording devices daily, sneaking them out from the room in the car when Rosalina was away. The new recordings made my heart race. Rosalina's call to Derek Voss, her voice low. Prepare the car. The brakes need to fail naturally. Gage was more hesitant. One recording from the car, him saying to someone, I'm not sure, sis. Ramon has been so good to me. But Rosalina reassured him, don't worry, the money will make up for it. Each time I listened, rage surged, but I suppressed it, waiting for the perfect moment. Then one night, everything exploded. It was an evening with rain pattering against the window, the wind howling through the cracks like a warning. I lay in bed, pretending to sleep, but with my ears perked up, listening. Rosalina thought I was exhausted after a long shift, so she snuck down to the office and called Gage over. I heard Gage's car parking in the garage, the familiar sound, but now like a death knell. They met in the living room, thinking I was fast asleep, but I had hidden a recording device there, and I snuck out to the hallway, hiding behind the kitchen door, my heart pounding as if it would burst from my chest. They whispered, their voices low but clear through the crack. The right time is coming soon, Rosalina said, her voice cold. The collision is already arranged. Voss will tamper with Ramon's brakes when he leaves the eatery. It'll look like a regular accident, plunging down the slope on the highway. I stood frozen, my blood turning to ice. They were staging it to harm me, exactly as I had guessed. Gage hesitated, his voice trembling. Sis, I'm scared. What if he really dies? Ramon is my own brother. Rosalina smirked and reassured him. Everything's set up, Gage. Voss is a pro. You just need to do the rest. Distract Ramon when he leaves the eatery. Call him. Talk about something so he doesn't notice the car. The $1 million in insurance money will be ours. Then it'll be the parents' turn. You'll be the beneficiary, and we'll be rich. I listened with my hands clenched into fists, my nails digging into my flesh. Gage still hesitated. But what if we get caught? I don't want to go to prison. Rosalina caressed him. I heard the sound and said sweetly, "Don't worry, my love. I've done this 3 times already, never got caught. We'll disappear and live in luxury. Ramon, he's just an obstacle." The conversation lasted half an hour, detailing the plan. Tomorrow, Gage would call me as I left the eatery and Voss would tamper with the car in the meantime. They kissed goodbye and Gage left. I snuck back to bed, lying still when Rosalina came up, my heart racing wildly. I had recorded the entire conversation. The device under the table had captured it all. The next morning, I woke up early, retrieved the device, and listened again to confirm. Their voices were crystal clear, the intent to kill undeniable. Tears fell from my eyes, not from sadness, but from anger. Gage, my brother, complicit in killing his own sibling. Rosalina, my wife, a cold-blooded predator. Right that morning, I gathered all the evidence. I skipped the eatery, called the assistant to cover, then drove to Lawyer Torres's office. In my hand was a bag, the backup USB from Caleb, recordings from the room and car, the investigator's report with photos and videos, insurance contracts. Mrs. Torres was waiting for me, her eyes stern. "Ramon, you look like a ghost. Tell me." I told her about last night's recording and played it for her. She paled. "This is golden evidence. Clear intent to murder. I'll prepare the official file. Accusations of insurance fraud, conspiracy to commit murder." She drafted the documents quickly, confirming the legality of the USB and recordings. Then she called the police, an old friend at the Denver precinct. "We'll hand it over right away. They'll act fast." I sat there, my hands shaking, suspense rising high. This was the counterstrike, no more waiting. The police immediately reopened the previous death files related to Rosalina in the states she had lived in. I went with Mrs. Torres to the station, meeting the lead detective, Mr. Mike Riley, a tall man with a deep voice. "You've got good evidence, Ramon. We'll coordinate with the FBI since it's interstate." They checked the files. Marcus Hale in Texas, Ethan Crow in California, Victor Lang in Florida. The forensic results showed unusual similarities between the cases. The same type of insurance policies from major companies, the same beneficiary under variations of Rosalina's name, the same payout timeline, just a few weeks after the accidents. "Not coincidental," Mr. Riley said. "Car accident, skiing mishap, drowning, all staged. We'll dig deeper." I sat listening, my heart feeling a mix of relief and pain. Those victims, Rosalina's former husbands, were now getting justice. In parallel, the police surveilled Rosalina and Gage, gathering more transaction data and appointment histories. They installed discrete tracking devices, with a court order based on my evidence. I was updated. Gage transferred money to Voss. Rosalina called, instructing act today. But the police intercepted Voss first, arresting him in the parking lot near my eatery with brake-cutting tools. He gave a preliminary confession. She hired me to arrange the accident. After the investigative agency verified the evidence I provided, arrest warrants for Rosalina and Gage were issued swiftly. It was a drizzly morning in Denver, the sky gray and overcast like my mood. Detective Riley called me at 6 o'clock. "Ramon, we've checked everything. The USB, recordings, photos all match up. The warrants are signed. We'll act today." My heart pounded, a mix of suspense and fear. I didn't want to witness it, but Riley advised, "You should stay at the station, monitor from afar." I drove to the station, gripping the steering wheel, my mind swirling. On the way, I recalled the first time I met Rosalina at a coffee shop, her smile radiant, eyes sparkling. "You cook so well." That was the beginning of everything, and now the end. When I arrived at the station, they were already in action. Live video from cameras, police knocking on my house door, Rosalina opening it, her face surprised. "What's going on?" They read the arrest warrant. "Rosalina Marlowe, you're under arrest for suspected insurance fraud and conspiracy to commit murder." She screamed, struggled, but was handcuffed. Simultaneously at my parents' house, Gage was arrested during breakfast. "Son, what's happening?" Mom cried, Dad hugging her. Gage looked around in panic. "I didn't do anything." But the evidence was too clear. I watched with my heart aching like it was being torn, the family shattered because of those I once loved. They were brought to the station, separated for interrogation. I sat in the waiting room sipping bland coffee, waiting. Mrs. Torres, my lawyer, sat beside me. "You did well, Ramon. Now let the law handle it." But I couldn't sit still. Riley allowed me to watch through the one-way glass, a privilege since I was the victim. First was Rosalina. She sat in the narrow interrogation room under harsh lights, facing two detectives. At first, she denied everything, her voice calm as always. "I don't know anything. My husband made it up out of jealousy. Those files are just financial work." She forced a smile, her eyes twinkling, the kind of smile that once captivated me. Detective Riley shook his head. "Mrs. Rosalina or Rosalina? Rosalind? We have marriage records from Texas, California, Florida. 3 husbands dead in accidents, you collecting the money and vanishing?" She paled but still denied. "Just coincidences. I'm not involved." They played the recording, her voice crystal clear. "The collision is arranged. Voss will tamper with the brakes." Rosalina fell silent, her eyes wide with horror. Then they showed photos. Meeting Voss in the parking lot, handing over the file bag. Rosalina broke down completely. She slumped her head on the table, sobbing uncontrollably, her shoulders shaking. "All right, I confess." Her voice broke like a dam bursting. I stood behind the glass, my hands clenched, tears streaming down. Was this the woman I loved? Or a monster? She confessed to carrying out a series of insurance scams in various states. The interrogation lasted hours, detailing each case, making me dizzy. Rosalina signed the statement, her eyes red and swollen. I turned away, unable to bear it. The pain surged like waves. I had truly loved her, dreamed of children and a future. Now, only ashes remained. As for Gage, he was interrogated separately. At first, he cried and denied vehemently. "I don't know anything. Sister-in-law tricked me." But faced with clear financial evidence, transfers to Voss, transactions with Rosalina, and her confession, Gage was forced to admit his role as an accomplice. Detective Riley played the car recording. "After Ramon goes, the money is ours." Gage hung his head. I was seduced by her. He confessed that Rosalina approached him a few months ago, starting with financial guidance, then becoming more intimate. She promised to split the money, said Ramon wasn't worthy, that we'd be happy. He cried, "I was manipulated. She said I'd be the beneficiary for our parents after your accident. I just needed to distract you when you left the eatery." I watched with my heart shattered. Gage, the little brother I once gave toys to, once protected. He admitted knowing the plan to kill me, but hesitated. I didn't want to, but she convinced me. The money? I needed the money. The interrogation ended. Gage signed the statement, his face pale. "Bro, I'm sorry." But the apology came too late. At the police station, when the final statements were signed, I knew the nightmare was truly over. But it also meant facing the fact that the wife I once loved and the brother I once trusted were both betrayers. The trial opened after nearly half a year of investigation, attracting significant public attention. It was a clear spring morning in Denver with a blue sky, but my heart was heavy like dark clouds. The federal courthouse was packed with people, reporters, lawyers, and curious onlookers from everywhere. The media covered the case extensively in the interstate insurance fraud scandal, with Rosalina Marlowe identified as the mastermind. Local newspapers, even national channels, reported it sensationally. Black Widow. Woman kills husbands for insurance money. Headlines screamed on the front pages. Reporters camped outside the court, cameras flashing, microphones thrust forward for questions. I avoided them as much as possible, wearing sunglasses and using the back door. The trial lasted several weeks, each day a torment. I sat in the witness row listening, but my mind wandered to the past. I remembered the first time Rosalina came to my eatery ordering a burger and smiling, "You cook the best in Denver." Now she sat in the defendant's seat wearing prison garb, her hair neatly bunched, her face gaunt. Gage beside her, his eyes red and swollen, avoiding my gaze. My parents didn't come. They were too devastated, staying home and crying. I was alone, facing it all. In the end, Rosalina was sentenced to 20 years in prison for indirect murder, insurance fraud, and forgery of documents, while Gage received a 12-year sentence for being an accomplice and aiding in the conspiracy to seize assets. The courtroom was noisy, reporters snapping photos. I sat still, not clapping, not cheering. I only felt a cold emptiness. Justice was served, but it didn't fill the void in my heart. I remembered Rosalina's smile under the Denver sun, Gage boasting about good grades in school. All gone. The verdict shocked the local community. The press called Rosalina the widow of many husbands, a cold-blooded woman who turned marriage into a tool for profit. Headlines everywhere. Black widow gets 20 years, a deadly love story. Reporters interviewed Voss and the families of past victims. Public outrage. How could such a beautiful woman be so evil? I avoided the press, but they still hounded me. The eatery was empty. Some curious folks stopped by to ask questions, but most stayed away. Poor guy, wife a husband killer. I forced a smile, but my heart ached. The Marlowe family plunged into crisis. Ramon's parents were devastated, both from losing faith in their youngest son and regretting not believing Ramon from the start. They barely left the house, avoiding neighbors, the pitying looks, and the whispers around town. I visited my parents after the trial. The familiar wooden house now felt dark. Mom sat on the sofa, her eyes red and swollen. "Son, I was wrong, not believing you, letting Gage..." She cried, hugging me tightly. Dad sat in the corner, smoking continuously. "I thought Gage was just mischievous. Now, we've lost our youngest son. They didn't go out, doors locked and bolted, avoiding neighbors' eyes. The Marlowe house, son in prison, daughter-in-law a killer." The whispers cut like knives. I comforted them. "Rest, Mom and Dad. I'll handle it." But my heart was shattered too. Remembering childhood, Dad teaching me to fix cars, Mom cooking, Gage running around. Now the family was in pieces. They deteriorated completely. Mom insomniac, Dad drinking. I stayed a few days cooking, cleaning, but the atmosphere was oppressive. "Forgive Gage, son," Mom kept saying. I stayed silent. "I'll try." But forgiveness isn't easy. Their regret was a heavy burden. If they'd believed me sooner, maybe it could have been stopped. I left the house, my heart full of sorrow. Denver now felt like a prison. Every street corner reminded me of Rosalina, of Gage. I needed to leave. Ramon attended the final trial in silence. He felt no hatred, only a cold emptiness. It was sentencing day. I sat in the back row watching Rosalina and Gage being led away. Rosalina turned, her eyes meeting mine. A flash of regret or pretense. Gage cried, "Bro!" But I didn't respond. No hatred. Hatred only adds pain. Just emptiness, like my soul drained dry. After the verdict took effect, he quit the eatery, sold the house and the old truck. I called the assistant. "I'm selling the place. You manage it." He was surprised. "You sure?" I nodded. "Sure. I need a change." Sold the house quickly, the small apartment full of memories, now like a haunted house. The old pickup truck once carrying me and Rosalina on picnics. All gone. The money wasn't much, but enough. He gave most of it to his parents for their retirement, then left Denver. I visited my parents one last time, handing an envelope. "Keep this, take care of your health. I'm going away for a while." Mom cried, "Where are you going?" I smiled sadly. "Out west. All right." Dad patted my shoulder. "Son, I'm proud of you." But his eyes were sad. The day he left, no one saw him off, no goodbyes. I boarded the bus, luggage light, watching Denver fade away. No friends, no family, just alone. Wind blew through the window, carrying the scent of autumn leaves. I looked out at the highway, my heart a mix of relief and loneliness. A new life awaited, but the old scars still ached. Denver disappeared behind me, and I thought, perhaps this is a new beginning. After leaving Denver, I traveled along the west, stopping in small towns without any specific plan. The bus took me through long, winding roads flanked by arid deserts interspersed with majestic mountains. I wasn't in a hurry. I'd stop wherever and stay for a few days, wandering like a nomad. First was Salt Lake City, Utah, a clean city with a salty lake glistening under the sun. I stayed in a cheap motel, ate hamburgers at roadside diners, and thought about the past. The first night's sleep was fitful with images of Rosalina's fake smile, Gage crying in court. I'd wake up drenched in sweat, my heart racing like back when I suspected them. But gradually the western winds blew away some of the pain. I continued on through Nevada with its glittering casinos in Reno, but I avoided them. Gambling wasn't what I needed. Then to Idaho, the state of potato fields and peaceful rivers. I stopped in a small town called Twin Falls beside the winding Snake River. The town was tiny with friendly residents who knew nothing of my past. That's where I decided to stay longer. I wandered along the main street and saw a hiring sign at a roadside eatery called Roadside Diner, the kind for truck drivers with the smell of black coffee and toasted bread. I stepped in and met the owner, a middle-aged man named Hank, his face ruddy from sun and wind. "You need a chef?" "I have experience," I said, my voice steady despite the nervousness inside. Hank eyed me appraisingly. "Try out for a week. Pays low, but food and lodging free." I nodded, and that's how it began. My new life in Idaho, simple, without the noise of Denver. My small room behind the diner with a single bed and a window overlooking the river. Every morning I'd wake at dawn, brew coffee, and step into the kitchen. The smell of grease, the sizzle of grilling meat. Familiar, but now with a sense of freedom. No more suspicion, no more fear. Just cooking, serving, and smiling at passing customers. My new life was simple and quiet. No personal eatery, no wife by my side, no brother dropping by. Just me and the daily work. Early mornings making egg sandwiches for drivers, noon grilling burgers for locals, evenings cleaning the kitchen. Hank was a good boss, quiet but fair. "You cook well, Ramon. Stick around," he said once, patting my shoulder. I smiled. "Thanks. I like it here." Quiet meant evenings sitting by the Snake River, watching the water flow, lost in random thoughts. I bought a notebook, jotting down new recipes, not for business, but to forget. Every week I'd write a letter to my parents. Handwritten, no email, because I wanted it slow. "How are you, Mom and Dad? I'm in Idaho working as a roadside chef. Nice weather, peaceful rivers. I miss home, but I'm okay. Love you." I'd stamp it and send it from the town's small post office. A few weeks later, a reply would come, Mom's handwriting shaky. "Son, we're fine. Dad sits in the garage fixing old cars. I plant vegetables. Gage. He sends letters from prison, asks about you. Forgive him?" I'd read it, emotions surging. I didn't respond to that part, just wrote back, "I'll try. Take care of your health." Those letters were like a fragile thread connecting me to the past, but not strangling. They eased my heart, but also reminded me of the scars. I imagined my parents at home, Mom reading and crying, Dad silently folding the letter. Simple life, basic meals, early to bed and early to rise, no TV, just an old country music radio. I avoided the news, didn't want to hear about the case anymore. But sometimes at the diner, customers would chat. Heard about the Black Widow in Denver? Heavy sentence. I'd force a smile. Haven't heard? And think to myself, that was my old life. A year later, I opened a small eatery in another town, named Second Flame. After a year in Twin Falls, I felt the need for change. Hank understood. Go on, but visit. I moved to a smaller town in Idaho called Sun Valley, where there's snow in winter and warm sun in summer. With my savings, I rented a small space and opened an eatery called Second Flame. The second flame implying a new chance burning from the ashes. The place was simple. Wooden tables, warm lights, basic menu, burgers, grilled ribs, fresh salads. On opening day, locals came in droves. New spot? Good luck. I cooked, smiled, my heart pounding, not from fear but excitement. The eatery grew busier thanks to my skills. I hired 2 young apprentices. A boy named Tim, clumsy but enthusiastic. A girl named Sarah, quick and agile. I taught them the trade, how to cook with real emotion, not just recipes. Grill meat by feeling the fire like feeling life. Tim asked, "Where'd you learn?" I smiled. From life, I taught them. Don't cook mechanically. Put heart into it, and the food will taste better. They learned, and the eatery became a cozy spot. Customers came not just to eat, but to chat. I found joy in that, teaching others like making up for the past. Ramon was no longer harsh on himself. He learned to forgive. Forgive Rosalina. She was pushed by life. Forgive Gage. He was weak-willed but blood. And forgive himself. I was once blind, but now awake. I forgave by living well, writing to my parents more often, sending photos of the eatery. Once a letter from Gage in prison. "Bro, I regret it." I replied, "I forgive you. Hang in there." Not easy, but sincere. My new life. Simple, but fulfilling. I stand in the kitchen of Second Flame, watching customers smile and think, this is the real me. The scars are still there, but the Second Flame is burning. But life doesn't stop there. In the peaceful moments by the kitchen fire, or those afternoons sitting by the river with a fishing rod. After all, when I look back on my journey from Denver to Sun Valley, from the nightmare of betrayal to a new flame, I realize that my story isn't just a personal tragedy. It carries profound messages, harsh lessons from life, and advice I wish I'd known sooner. I'm not a sage, just an ordinary chef who was knocked down by life and then stood back up. But that's why what I've learned feels authentic and relatable, like a family meal, not fancy, but warm and heartfelt. Let me share them with you as if we're sitting at a wooden table in Second Flame, sipping a hot cup of coffee and chatting about life. The first message, perhaps the most obvious, is that life is full of dark surprises, but people always have the ability to rise from the ashes. I once thought my life was over when I discovered the truth about Rosalina and Gage. Losing my wife, my brother, my trust. Denver became a prison of memories, with every street corner reminding me of fake smiles, strange calls, and sleepless nights full of suspicion. I remember that feeling clearly. Sitting alone in my old eatery after closing under the dim neon lights, holding a cold cup of coffee and asking myself, how do I go on living? The pain was like a black hole, swallowing everything, sleep, smiles, even the joy of cooking. But then when I boarded the bus leaving Denver with the western wind blowing through, I realized dark surprises aren't the end, but an opportunity for rebirth. Like the second flame, burning from the pile of ashes. This message isn't empty theory, it's from real experience. I lost everything but found myself again in small towns by the Snake River or in the kitchen of my new diner. Life taught me that no matter how deeply betrayed, people can ignite a new flame, brighter and more enduring. Don't fear the black hole. Find the ashes and breathe fire into them. The first lesson from my story is about trust. Trust is necessary, but it must come with vigilance, especially in the closest relationships. I once trusted Rosalina absolutely because she was skillful, gentle, and always knew how to make me feel like the center of the world. I remember those evenings sitting by the fireplace with her resting her head on my shoulder, talking about our shared dreams. You and I will expand the eatery, have children, be happy forever. I believed her because love means trust. With Gage, my brother, I trusted because of blood ties. From childhood, I'd spoiled him, protected him from family arguments. But the harsh lesson is, blind trust can lead to disaster. The strange signs, locking the office door, late-night calls, a vague past, I once overlooked them thinking I was too suspicious. The result? I nearly lost my life. This lesson taught me that in life, listen to your intuition. If something feels off, like a laptop full of strange files or a brother suddenly getting rich, don't brush it aside. Investigate, even if it's painful. I remember opening Rosalina's black briefcase, my heart pounding, discovering insurance files with Gage as the beneficiary. At that moment, I almost stopped, afraid of destroying our marriage. But if I had, I might be in the grave now. The lesson isn't to doubt everyone, but to balance. Trust, but verify. In family, love, or friendships, observe closely. The small details could save your life. And if you're reading this, suspecting someone close, remember. Vigilance isn't betrayal, it's self-protection. Another lesson, even deeper, is about the value of family, not blood family, but the family we choose and build. The Marlowe family was once my anchor. My parents spoiled Gage, but still loved me in their own way. But when I told them the truth, they dismissed it. You're too suspicious. That pain was greater than the betrayal from Rosalina and Gage, because family is where we expect the most trust. The lesson is, family isn't perfect, and sometimes they're biased, blinded by love. But true value lies in how we respond. I was once the loneliest in my family, the one who saw everything clearly but wasn't believed. Leaving Denver, I thought I'd lost it all. But in Idaho, I found a new family. Hank like an uncle, Joe like a best friend, Lily like a sister, and later Tim and Sarah like children. They're not blood, but they listen to me, share joys. The lesson taught me that family isn't just lineage. It's those who stand by you in the storm. Cherish your blood family, but if they hurt you, have the courage to build a new one. I remember evenings at Second Flame sitting with Tim and Sarah after shifts, sharing life stories, not all, just the happy parts. Life is like grilled ribs, marinate right, fire just so, and it's delicious. They laugh and I feel warm. This is the family I chose. If you're hurting because of family, remember, you have the right to rebuild from the fragments. The first piece of advice I want to share is, when in doubt, act immediately but discreetly and with a plan. I once hesitated, thinking, maybe I'm too suspicious, and nearly paid with my life. Advice: if you see strange signs, like a spouse locking doors, a brother changing suddenly, don't confront right away because the guilty will deny everything. Gather evidence quietly like I did by asking Caleb to back up the laptop, hiring investigator Jack. I remember those nights sneaking to hide recording devices, my heart pounding, afraid of being caught. But that caution saved me. Advice: use technology, recordings, data backups, and find trustworthy allies like Lawyer Torres. Don't go it alone. Isolation makes you weak, and when you have enough evidence, report to authorities. Don't handle it yourself, it's dangerous. In my case, if I'd reported sooner, maybe Gage wouldn't have sunk so deep. Remember, timely action saves not just you, but those around you. Another piece of advice: learn to forgive, but don't forget. Forgive to free yourself, not to let them off the hook. I once hated Rosalina to the point of insomnia, imagining her smiling over my grave. Hated Gage for betraying blood ties. But hatred is like poison, corroding yourself. In Sun Valley, sitting by the fire, I learned to forgive. Not erase it all, but let go to live on. Forgive Rosalina. She had a painful past that pushed her down the wrong path. Forgive Gage. He was tempted, but now paying the price. And forgive myself. I was blind from love, but now wiser. Advice: start with journaling. Write out the pain, then the forgiveness. Or talk to friends like I did with Joe by the river. Ever been betrayed? He shared old stories and I felt lighter. Forgiveness isn't weakness, it's strength, helping you move forward. If you're hating someone, try. Breathe deep. Think about why they did it, then release. Life's short. Don't let hatred take space. The lesson on the power of resilience. Life knocks you down, but getting up is a choice. I was once devastated after the trial, selling the eatery, leaving Denver, thinking life was over. But in Idaho, each day at work, each letter to my parents, I rebuilt. Lesson: resilience isn't heroic, it's small steps. Like me learning to sketch by the river, even if badly but joyfully. Or opening Second Flame, worried about failure but trying. Advice: when down, start with small habits. Walking, reading, cooking. Find simple joys like me with the fishing rod. And remember, time heals, but you must be proactive. Don't wait for miracles, create them. The final message: life is a journey, not a destination. Live authentically with real emotions. At Second Flame, I teach Tim and Sarah, cook with the heart, not the hands. Apply to life, live with real emotions, not pretense. I once lived in a shell, blind trust. Now I live true, cry when sad, laugh when happy. Lesson: authenticity helps you spot fakes sooner. Advice: listen to your heart, don't ignore intuition. And build a simple life, like me in Sun Valley, snow falling outside, customers smiling inside. That's real happiness. Through this story, I hope you draw your own lessons. My life from hell to a small heaven, from betrayal to forgiveness. If you're hurting, remember, the Second Flame is always waiting for you to ignite. Thanks for listening. Now go on living with real emotions. 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 Real emotions.